you so much. Great. And just to give a brief introduction, Akshay and I both primarily work in the overseas education space and take care of that in Mindler. We have a colleague, Anisha, as well, who's supporting us in the chat. And the primary agenda of this was because we received a lot of queries in the last 1 or 2 months where we see people are looking at studying abroad, but they are still not sure how to navigate that. Or also, some of them are not sure, is it the right time for them, or should they be spending the money right now, or should they be considering looking at international education next year, and how do they navigate this? So in this brief webinar, Akshay and I thought we'll come together and try and address your respective queries and also set the very basic guidelines that you can keep in mind while considering education abroad. So just to quickly begin and give you a simple idea about the same, when we look at studying abroad, the most important factor is how do you begin the process in the first place? Akshay, do you want to begin talking about it? How do we actually decide on studying abroad, primarily for post-graduation?
Yes. So when we are looking at studying abroad, it's very important for you to understand, do you want to study at this point of your time in your career? So there would be students who are in their final year of their undergrad. There would be people who are working. There would be somebody who's taking a gap year and figuring out their life. So you need to be a little bit more clearer about your goals, because moving ahead from an undergraduate, postgraduate is going to be much more specialized than your undergraduate degree. So you need to understand what you want to study. And along with that, as much as importance, it's going to be where you want to study. So this is the first two questions that you have to figure out. And if you need some help, you can always also reach out to your professors, you reach out to your friends. So see, explore, and find out, like what all resources are available to you to start figuring this out.
Absolutely. I think, and that is a very important point. So just to shed some more light and develop on what Akshay rightly mentioned, I think, first of all, I'm even going to go a step before this and talk about why are we looking at studying further in the first place? Because a lot of people, after they're done with the graduation and start working, some of them feel that they have to go and study whichever part of the world, even in India for that matter. They are not even sure why they're looking at a postgraduate degree. And also with the kind of variety available in post-graduation, it's become such a difficult thing to navigate. All of us are spoiled for choice with the kind of opportunities, right? So the first thing is deciding whether or not to look at a degree right now. And if you are looking at a degree, why is it so important? Are we looking at upskilling? Are we looking at a job change? Are we looking at industry change? Also, is it just to network with people? A lot of us look at studying abroad because we want to go and get the right kind of exposure because maybe a college education was limited. The biggest reason I've seen in the last 1 or 2 odd years is that because of the pandemic, college education journey did not happen the way it used to. So people are rushing for international education and going to postgrad immediately because they crave that. They missed out on a very important part of the education at the undergrad because they were stuck at homes. So they want to make up for that, right? So there's one major reason that's come up, which was not there earlier. Another factor is if I am looking at studying further, should I look at studying in India, or is it worth spending that much money abroad? Because when I'm investing so much, I need a return. Then we look at factors like ROI, how do we navigate a career in that particular country? So number of factors come up. So first factor, again, repeating myself, especially the people who've just joined, I see the numbers rising as well, to just focus on the fact that you are choosing a degree for the right reasons. Because in case you go to college and pick up a degree which is not going to benefit you in any way, that might be a big question mark and might also become a burden for you. Because I'm assuming some of us are looking at education loans and aiming for scholarships, which we'll cover later half of the webinar as well. So very important factors. Now let's assume we have already decided the reasons we are looking at, and then we consider studying. When we look at studying abroad for post-graduation primarily, which is the basic context of this webinar, it comes down to what countries are right for us and how do we navigate that. Akshay, would you like to shed some light how different countries vary for postgraduate degree?
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to start from the end of a map, which is laid on a flat scale. So starting from US, Canada, these are the primary North American countries that students would be looking at. And then we do have Europe, including the UK and Scandinavian countries and also the Balkans. So we have, we have seen students are increasingly looking at countries like Netherlands, Germany this year. And then obviously there's India, and then we move to Southeast Asia and out of there, I think Singapore is the best choice in Southeast Asia. Then we have at the end New Zealand and Australia. Students also are like a little bit curious these days to like explore countries like Japan and South Korea because of like a lot of scholarship opportunities and like um, increasing exposure from like these governments are also pushing and like inviting students to learn them. So yeah, just a brief overview. These are the countries that we have seen students have gone to the past years.
Absolutely. And I think with every country, there are particular points to consider. Now, just to elaborate on each of the points that Akshay was talking about, especially a lot of countries have number of restrictions as well. For instance, if I'm studying in India as an international student, US and Canadian universities primarily prefer us to have a 4-year degree. And a lot of us are not too sure that our degrees are working or not, or will they be acceptable. So that becomes a big question mark. Fortunately, that's not the case with Singapore, Europe, UK, Australia, like Akshay mentioned, and quite a lot of countries, right? I'm assuming nobody here is aiming to study in Russia or Ukraine for the foreseeable future. In case you are, I'm very sorry, we're not going to be covering those. You're primarily looking at the major countries. That's very important. And please make sure you keep asking questions anywhere you want to. We'll be more than happy because this was planned more as a Q&A session because you were getting a lot of queries. So make sure you keep asking questions wherever anything is required. We'll be happy to address them. Beyond these factors, when we're looking at countries, we also have to consider what are the careers we're looking at because every country has a specific niche. For instance, if I want to make a career in banking in particular, UK, US, Australia work really well for me. If I want to make a career in technology, Germany, Netherlands, all these countries have a huge importance. Not that US and UK don't, but of course, depending on the industry I want to get into, every country has a specific niche. If I'm looking at specific domains like medicine and law, every country follows a very different regime, right? To give you a simple example, if I'm looking at studying medicine in the US in the long run, I would recommend rather go in the US in the first place, right? But if you studied your undergrad MBBS in India, the pathway is very different. So you have to make very specific and conscious decisions while making a choice of the country. It cannot be random. In case any of you here today are looking at going for your master's in 2023 itself, we are already sitting at the later end, so you have to definitely rush the process. And we are more than happy to help you with the applications and every query you might have. Feel free to ask them. I'm repeating myself. But in case you have more time and you're still in the process, you are still undergrad kid, you're still thinking that, okay, might as well go next year. This is still the right time for you to start planning because applications for the next admission cycle will also start opening in the next 6 months, right? In India, even for Indian universities, you have applications open by late November, December, even for post-graduation. To try and make sure you don't push this decision further because it's a common thing. The earlier you apply, the better your chances. Also, it will impact your scholarship and financial aid decisions. So very, very relevant factors to consider. Another thing that we personally will want to discuss is about once you have selected the kind of countries you're looking at, how do we navigate universities? Now, we can look at rankings. That's an important factor. But let me break it down this way. Rankings are mere reference point because you can't be applying to and looking at 100 universities. Some major rankings in the world like QS, Times Higher Education Ranking, etc., Forbes, Financial Times, work as a barometer that we can see these universities are globally accredited and we can consider them. But am I saying ranking as the only factor? Absolutely not. Some other important factors that we can possibly talk about is how well is the research facility? How well have the students done in the last few years, right? And how has people gone and what kind of salaries they've received, what kind of industries they've gone into working. And you can possibly get this data from university websites, LinkedIn, other social media platforms, because every university is really proud of the kind of placements they get, right? So you can consider all these factors. Location is an important factor. You can't go to a remote location where you might not get opportunities, or you might be a person who's looking purely at a research area. So you might look at university with the best possible funding and history in research and accreditations available. So number of factors come into play. Just to add to this factor, and I would like Akshay to add to this as well. Akshay, what are your tips for somebody who's looking at shortlisting universities beyond these simple factors? How do you approach this?
Okay. Since I'm helping the students to draft their application from the beginning, I follow a specific methodology. We have a very detailed research sheet that we use, but I'm going to make it, like simplify it for you. So first, the location matter. So once you even shortlist the country, then still the location matters. If you're looking at US, it's vast. So you have the East Coast, you have the West Coast, you have the Southern, you have the Midwest. So if you're particularly looking at some, like industries or, like even weather conditions, that does matter. The second thing is the reputation of the university. Obviously, ranking gives us a general idea, a really good idea. So we don't, 100% rely on these rankings. But if you say, like, if you take the top 50 ones of, like, say, like, three rankings, then you will find a lot of, like, colleges popping out on a similar scale. That's how, like, as Abhishek rightly mentioned out, you can, shortlist as colleges. Then the other thing is that postgraduate application, you really need to look at the curriculum. So this is not, like, some students might not do that in the beginning, but at least if you go through the website and explore, you would be able to understand. Okay, at least go and see the college or go and see the program. Then, so these are the primary things that I would look at. And one more very important thing, look at the career trajectories or, like, graduate outcomes for these universities and their reputation. So that's also very important, as Abhishek rightly pointed out. One thing that I specifically recommend for international students is that see the international student population at those specific universities. A lot of universities do provide these. So that's something, like, when, very simple, if you look at a reputable business program, you'd see that they really value international diversity. Some programs as much as have 85% of, like, international students. So that's very important. That's something that I would recommend. Yes, Abhishek, please carry on.
We have a question, Akshay, and I think I'll add to it, and you can further add to it if you would like to. Miss Sunita is asking that how is MBA different from MSc management? I think that is one thing we would have addressed either way, and it's a very prominent question. Thank you so much for asking this question. Now, when we look at MBA and MSc management or MIM for that matter, you have to try and understand they are not interchangeable courses, right? Also, MBA has been a more traditional degree and also professional degree that exists. Masters in management is a rather recent concept that came up to light in the last 10 odd years, if I can say so. How are they different? Now, let's assume I've done my undergraduate education and I don't want to get a lot of work experience, but I really want to understand further and deep dive into my education and specialize in that area. Or even if I'm looking at a general master's in management, I want to understand how different functions work in a business environment. And I have no idea because I don't have the right kind of exposure. So MSc management is just the right next degree that I can do it immediately after my undergraduate. Work experience is not really required. Even if you see the major universities around the world offering this program, the average work experience is 0 to 2 years. They don't need more than that. Sorry, average is not the word. The total experience is 0 to 2 years. That you need to keep in mind. On the MBA side, however, the average experience at the top global schools is 4 to 5 years bare minimum, right? Some schools like INSEAD in France, experience goes on to 5 to 7 years for that matter as well. Now, you might be wondering, in India, I can go and do an MBA right after university. You'll be surprised to see that even the IIM Ahmedabad or Bangalore MBA are ranked globally on a master's ranking. Why? Because people are working without any experience. So an MBA is a degree you get when you have sufficient work experience and you want to escalate your career journey, or you want to navigate to a different career, or you further want to upskill yourself. The main point is, let's assume we are looking at a school like Random Business School, which offers both these degrees. The difference is in the classroom, because somebody with more experience in the MBA classroom can go and learn from different professionals and different experiences and network with similar people. A master student who is just trying to understand and try to get the foot in the door in the corporate world. That is how it differentiates in the first place, right? You will find a lot of students from master's courses going and doing an MBA later as well. Akshay, any points you want to add to this?
Very simple thing to understand about, like, is the career outcomes. So if you graduate from an MIM degree or, like, an MSc in management degree, you will be getting into entry level positions and, like, junior, associate, assistant roles. But if you are, like, you already have like 4 or 5 years of work ex and you go for an MBA degree, you will be going into, like, managerial roles and upper levels of management. And the salary scale is also totally different. So if you look at even simply say like IIM, if you go without work experience and you graduate, your salary would start say like 10 to 15 lakhs per annum. But if you have work ex and you're doing an MBA at the same place, your salary would be more than 25 or 30. Just like to give in like a relative figure. So that does matter.
Absolutely, that's a very important point as well, because that's what a lot of people are looking at. So I hope it answers the question. Moving on from this now, of course, let's assume we have decided to look at our application. the most important part starts now. How do we start planning the application journey? Because it's not really easy, right? So I want to address the first elephant in the room, which is the standardized tests, right? A lot of universities will require you to have a GRE or a GMAT. Now, please understand a GRE, GMAT are required for majority of the courses, but not in all the countries and not at all the universities. So is it compulsory to give these exams? No, but you have to go and look back that the universities and the courses you're applying for, do they require? Simple rule of thumb is a lot of research driven courses will require you to have a GRE primarily, and a lot of management courses will accept either GRE or GMAT in majority of the countries. If I'm looking at an MBA, 75 to 80% B schools, the best ones, will require these exams. At the master's level, some of them will say that, oh, we don't require it, it's not compulsory. Should you give this? Absolutely, if you can, and wherever, because it improves your chances. Also, it shows to the university that your quant ability is actually at the standards they're looking at. So it does help as well. Is it the only thing they look at? No, but it's important. Another factor to consider is the International English Language Testing Standard, or the IELTS exam, or TOEFL, whichever you want to give. It's basically to just show that you know the language. Even though we do, we have to just give a proof of that. It's a mere formality. Some countries and universities might give you exemptions, but I will simply say, instead of looking for exemption, might just as well give it. It's a simple English test, doesn't take too much effort, so you can do that. Uh, Coming to the other part of the application, right? Actually, do you want to highlight the most basic elements of the application?
Yes, absolutely. So if you're looking at the components of an application, you will find a lot of similarity. So first basic requirement is going to be a CV or a resume. So CV curriculum with this, like just like your biodata. So what have you studied, your work experience, your internship, everything goes, even extracurricular activities in that. So that's your CV or resume. Then would be the statement of purpose, which some universities say as a personal statement, some say as a cover letter, some say as a letter of intent. So it's basically, like it's an essay. And based on different universities and different programs, these requirements, like requirement for the essay might change. Some would say like, okay, you need to give a 300-word essay. Some would say 500, some would say 1 to 3 pages. Some are even willing to go like 3 to 4 pages. So even if you're looking at all kind of master's program, it's going to be the and essays questions do differ as well. Just for like your info, one would say, why are you coming to this program? Just let us know. The other one would be, for example, a management program will definitely ask you what are your career goals, or tell us about a time you have faced a failure. Talk about it, like that essay. So CV, then the essay, then would be letter of recommendations. And it differs by universities and differs by program from 1 to 3. A lot of universities in the UK say that they only need 1, but majority of them say 2. If you're looking at US or Canada, it's always going to be 3. Outside of UK, even if you're looking at Europe, it's going to be on an average level 2, and Australia and Singapore as well. And letter of recommendations can be from your supervisors. It also can be from your professors. So there's 2 distinctions: academic and professional letter of recommendation. So letter of recommendation or letter of reference. So these are the basic 3 requirements that actually go in the application. And as Abhishek has mentioned, other things that goes in the application are your test scores applicable to specific universities and specific programs, and the language proficiency score, which is going to be almost like, I would say, 80 to 90% of the universities require if you're coming from India, with like very little exemptions. Yeah, I hope I missed anything. Yeah.
No, in fact, you have. In fact, let's do one thing. Anisha, can you enable screen sharing? Let's just show them how a university website, how do you navigate that, right? Especially when you're looking at searching about a particular course. So let us just give you an example of that as well. Okay, great. Wonderful. So let's say I have this website open for me. You can see my screen now, Akshay? Right? So let's look at London School of Economics, one of the most popular schools there is. So you can have a look, right? There you go. 1 second. Excellent. So if I'm looking at a program now, of course, the first thing is I'm looking at a postgraduate program, right? So let's say I'm looking at management, for instance, right? And this is very important because oftentimes we feel really stuck and overwhelmed at a university website. So I can go have a look. Now, immediately, of course, to make it clear, I can mention what kind of degree I'm looking at. I'm looking at a graduate program. So of course, only the master's programs will be visible. And this is one of the most popular programs that London School of Economics has. So I'll just open this. Great. So now you've opened the website, all the basic details about the programs are more or less mentioned to you, right? Now they're very clearly mentioned. You have to give a GRE, GMAT, understand the information. Now, the first thing, when you look at an application, like Akshay mentioned, you have to look at the entry requirements. Because if I'm not eligible, I can't really apply. Now, you might be wondering that not given a qualification for Indian student. So I can click on the international qualifications, go find India in the list. Uh, there is India here. Graduate entry requirements. I immediately know the kind of marks, the kind of percentage universities will take, and I have my answer. You will very easily be able to navigate this. Every university is a different grade point. So you have your answer if my degree or my score is relevant or not, and can I apply to this university? It gets that simple, quite literally, right? And that's something how I can plan this. So if I've done this bit in particular, now I have an understanding of the program. Now I'll go back. I want to understand about the course. What are the modules available? What exactly will I be studying in the program? Because I want to understand this for myself. And this is very important because when you're applying to colleges, you have to write the personal statement or essay. Till the time you're not aware about the curriculum and what you're exactly doing, it becomes all the more difficult. Some universities have so many optional modules, but I don't know because I have not explored this. And it becomes difficult to make a very strong, compelling case. Another smart thing we recommend our students when Akshay and I work with them is at Minded to tell them to connect with professors because you get to be, imagine a professor at a university applying to connect with you on LinkedIn and you can have a conversation with them that, listen, I'm really looking forward to this program. I want further insights. If the professor feels really happy, that can be a really good point for you when the applications are being considered, right? This can be a really, really strong point to do because a lot of people don't know about this and this goes unnoticed. You have testimonials to check. You want to understand what kind of careers I can make. So you have a lot of information available that you can leverage, right? So universities try and make sure they try and give you the best possible version. So try and make sure you do that. What score I consider good for? Uh, Sunita, it is very subjective to universities and the programs you're applying to, right? So I can't put a pin on that. But of course, if I'm looking at GMAT, uh, because it's out of 800, I should try and look at anywhere up for the 700. Some universities have a lower requirement too, and 700 is not easy to get. So I'm not saying too high or too low, but try and make sure somewhere around that. IELTS and TOEFL, it doesn't really matter. Every university would have specified it, right? IELTS, it's out of 9 bands, so anything above 7.5 works very well. TOEFL, 100 and 304 above, Akshay, we should be fine.
100,
100,
105 above is, like
100.
usually fine.
Wonderful.
So even if you're looking at GRE, what I recommend, so a lot of students that I've handled go to the US because they usually require GRE. And I would say 320 above is the, like above average score. But if you're looking at, say, like some of the best universities, 326 is the, like I would say the best score to keep above, and anything from below 340. And GMAT is, like very specific about, like it really differs. So as Abhishek said, 700 and above is, like usually the best score. You'll see schools with, like 730 as an average that has come up in the, like last year. Very recently, the GMAT survey told that people are getting, I think 22 point some percentage of the people who are taking GMAT are getting 700 and above.
700, yes,
It's getting really competitive. This released very recently. We actually had a really interesting case the last year. So the student, his GMAT score was 580, I believe. Yeah, 580. But he has a really impressive profile. He was actually, like the person was actually running his own venture and, like carrying out different things. And he got into one of the best business schools. I think not one. He got into actually 3, 4. And he went to one of the best programs in France. So yeah, it's really subjective as well.
Vanshika, if you're looking at studying dentistry like medicine in, abroad, it works very differently depending with every single country in particular. And we are more than happy to address this because it will be a very extended conversation in a session. So we're happy to do that. But just to give you an overview, for any country we are considering, it's ideal a student has a background from a similar degree, right? Because like specifically, I'm assuming you're looking at uh,
This is Master in Public Health and Master in Health Administration, I believe.
yeah, I saw dentistry somewhere.
DDS. Want to pursue dentistry abroad after BDS?
Yeah, that's the thing. That becomes very, very tricky because students studying BDS in India, you have multiple competition. Also, a majority of the places will not let you practice as a dentist. You can only work uh, complementing a surgeon. I forgot the name of the particular profession it's called. You can work as an ancillary. That's what exactly happens because they're required to work, study in the same country. But a lot of countries allow it. For example, UK becomes a very favorable option for you. It's a possibility, right?
We
I think
have
you answered the question.
Ivy Leagues consider 10th and 12th. See, for a master's program, they don't really care about your 10th and 12th. They really look at what has happened in the past, like 4 years. Also, very specific. I think, I don't know if we mentioned or forgot. If you're looking at US or Canada, please ensure that you should have at least 4 years of education, which
Yeah,
is recommended. There are universities that makes an exemption for 3 years of degree, and those are going to be a very short list, and it also depends upon the college or the university that you have done your undergraduate degree. For example, University of British Columbia say that they accept 3 years of degree, but from specific institutions. So they accept from University of Delhi and some other institution, IIM, no, not IIM, sorry. So University of Delhi and all. So you have to find it very specifically. US also accepts, but very specific universities and very specific programs that they hold of high regard.
absolutely. Another important that works, Anita. That should be fine. That's what a lot of students actually do. So that works. They do a 3 year degree and go ahead do a PG diploma or a postgrad in India. That works very well. So that's the ideal course of action. Otherwise, you can go and get work experience too. And if it's really relevant experience, that can cover up for that too, right? That can work. Another important factor to highlight is, of course, scholarships and financial aid. Now, just to make it very clear, uh, let's assume we are applying to certain universities abroad. Getting into the top universities anyway is difficult. Getting scholarships is all the more difficult. Not that it's not possible, but let me give you a simple math to it. Let's assume we have 100 people applying to a particular school, and the acceptance rate is, let's assume, 10 to 11%. So out of 11 people getting into the university, maybe one or two of them will be deserving of scholarship. I'm just giving you basic idea so you can reference it. So what does it take to get scholarships? Of course, excellent academic scores, brilliant profile overall. And what we mean by profile, what kind of other engagements you've had, be it extracurriculars, co-curriculars, and because it's postgrad, specific to the domain of your choice, right? So let's say if I want to go and work in economics, have you done any papers? Have you worked on any personal projects? Have you gotten relevant work experience that works really well for you? And if they feel that the kind of industry you want to work in, you will make genuine impact, scholarships are definitely possible. And scholarships are one way of funding your education. Beyond that, you can also look at education loans, financial aids, government bonds, etc. That's possible. Akshay, do you want to add any points to scholarships? Any tips that you think are going to help you?
Yeah, see, scholarships you have to consider. Okay, people give scholarship for two things. It's very simple. One is based on your merit, one is based on your financial need. And university determines that. Okay, and it's also based on the availability of funds for each specific year. So, for example, 2022, the student might get from 23, they might not provide that scholarship. So that's based on the university. And you can also look at, like scholarship websites. But master's program, I would say that generally the trend, what we have seen, business programs and engineering programs have limited scholarship opportunities. They do have diversity of, like scholarships. For example, women in STEM, women in business, they do have a lot. Arts, humanities, social science, because these are not professional, they do get a little bit more funding, specifically government funding, and also from the university departments. So that's a general trend. I would also want to answer one question before moving on to the another question. Would a gap year affect my chance of getting admissions? So after your undergraduate degree, if you have taken a gap year or if you plan to take a gap year, obviously when your resume is being sent, that would be shown. But I would say that, so my recommendation, even if you're taking a gap year, you have to do something productive. So you have to, like I would say, work part-time, or if you can, working full-time doesn't mean a gap year. So you have to at least work a part-time, or, like do something, like credible to show that you are doing something. Okay. So that's my take. What do you say, Abhishek, about gap year?
No, absolutely agree with you because I think actually the problem is the understanding of gap year is also really different for everybody. Because when you look at gap years, it's the idea is that you're trying to make the most out of it, A, to do better in your domain or understand further about yourself and participate in different engagements, right? So if you do it right, I completely agree with you. Siddharth, absolutely gonna say US is a great country to make a career, but you have to go to the right kind of universities. That goes without saying. right? If you're looking at being a civil engineer in the United States, of course, the employment market doesn't seem as feasible. But if you go to the best schools possible in the world, why not? Absolutely can be worked upon, right? Uh, those were the main points we wanted to cover. So if you have questions, Akshay, I'm happy to address those.
Yeah. So if you have questions about, say, a particular program or a particular country that you're looking at, we can, like definitely answer those. And also going back, I forgot to mention, when you're talking about a gap year, obviously, then your statement of purpose, you have to mention what you have done in that year. So for master's application, I think this is also one more thing that I would say. Unlike the UG applications where you talk about your personal story, master's applications is read by your faculty. They want. So if you're talking about a subject, the people who are reading it, they know what you're talking about. So you cannot bluff or, like do some things in that kind of application. Yeah. So master's program, your application, your essays are like very direct. They really want to know what you want to study, why you want to study. They don't look at a
Yeah.
lot of things that has happened in your childhood.
So yeah, to keep it very direct, that's a very important point for sure. I would simply say yes, extracurriculars are important simply because you're not, even when you go to work, you have multiple areas of interest. You have to connect with people, right? So that's where your personality comes into life. Are they very important? I will know. I will just be like 20 to 30% weight is given to them. If you're asking that, will this not having extracurriculars makes it impossible for me to get in? No. But if you have that, that shows a different part of your personality. It also shows that I can juggle my interest areas with my academic and other interests as well. So that becomes an important part of your personality, right? And also I can show my skills like team. If I'm playing a team sport, I can show teamwork. I can show leadership through different kind of skills I have and different kind of engagements I have. University name matters, but a lot of school students from open school have gone on to study at the leading university in the world, so it's a possibility. But of course, you need to genuinely show it that why were you going to open school? Was it a genuine concern? And while going to open school, have you been able to make the best out of other opportunities available? So that works. Other than that, we can share our email IDs as well, and you can reach out to us if you need any guidance. We'll be more than happy to. Akshay can add yours as well.
Yeah. I have a question. Is there anything unique about getting admissions in top colleges like Harvard, MIT? Jump in.
No, I would simply say, of course, there is, I think, the unique element. Okay, I'll break it down to three parts in particular and say to everybody, and I want to actually highlight a bit of it. If you can answer these three questions, why, what, and how, I think you can crack any university in the world, right? Why is your motivation to study a particular program? What is, how have you prepared yourself to work in the particular domain? And how do you want to use that degree moving forward in your career and personal life or make to make an impact? Every single person that we've been able to work with. Akshay worked with somebody last year, went to Columbia, and she had those goals very sorted and aligned, made it all the more possible to crack that university, right? And we see it every single year. I got a chance to work with a couple of people who cracked INSEAD this year, and I realized that, oh, this works so well. People have very true and very directed goals, and we are able to navigate that journey, right? So I think it's, first of all, stop separating these universities. They all are looking at a similar thing. Also, you have to try and identify. When I look at a university website, I can immediately tell that is this university even the right fit for me or not. Why? Because I've understood myself, I've understood my goals, I've understood what a university is looking for. If there is no synergy, I don't think you'll be able to crack that because it's not the school that's meant for you. So try and make sure you get the basics right, everything else works. In Europe and UK it's 2 year stay back right now. Europe it's 18 to 24 months depending on different countries. Yes, that's the case.
Some universities do not recommend working part-time because courses how to convince them. Okay, that's a bit of a difficult question. Okay, so here is how it works. Okay, in US, you cannot actually work part-time unless you are working within the university. So you can work in the university, you can get some money. So there are specific limitations. I think in the UK and all, you can actually work part-time, but it depends. So if you look at, so this is also why we actually recommend going through the website. There are courses that actually the course schedules, if you look at the course schedule, there are universities where classes happen 3 times in a week. There are universities where classes happens once in a week. So you really want to look at what kind of program that you would like to, if you want a really academically sound program, once in a week is not the best option for you to, excel academically. So there are specific things that you would like. And to answer your question, I am not able to answer it 100%. I know, because I don't know how to convince the university to let you work part-time. Abhishek.
No, no, absolutely. And the idea is, if you're looking at working part time primarily, what is the reason? You are trying to support yourself, but if it's the cost factor and trying to save the money, I think, like Akshay said, you can work in the university, right? If it's to gain relevant experience in particular, then you can try and address this to the university. They do make exceptions, but very rare cases, and they should genuinely feel. Now, imagine you walk into the university with an internship letter, you are able to convince them because you've already landed their internship, right? It's not that you're saying, I will do this if you allow me. No, it doesn't work that way. I think you have to be proactive in the approach, and that can happen.
Just to add on to that, see, there are universities, for example, Canada is very well famous for their co-op opportunities. So which means that you will have a semester or, like a period for co-op where you can actually go and work full time at that period and earn money like an internship. So there are opportunities in that way.
Aditya, I'm adding the few top schools, but it depends on your profile, to be honest. We can't really suggest colleges like that. So we need to have an idea, but these are the best in the world. Uh, Anilam, absolutely. Jewelry designing has scope if you're looking at especially France, Italy, UK, and US. Some very particular schools. For example, if you want to do jewelry design, the GIA Institute for Gemologists is one of the best ones for you to get certified and accredited. But yeah, absolutely. But you can learn a lot about design in India also.
So sorry. What will be the cost of living in Germany? It depends on the city where you're from, but on an average, what I've seen, they would say like around 800 euros per month. That's what they say. But it depends on how you're living, what kind of life you live. Yeah. But that's the like general.
Shristi, very simple domain. I can answer this for you. If you're looking at luxury brand management in particular, especially looking at masters, there are not many institutes in the world that do a good job. So I'll tell you the ones you can consider. And these are the best ones, to be honest. And of course, if you're looking at an MBA program, I don't know your profile. If you can crack these two, these are the best for MBA. So completely depends on your profile. So that you can look at University of Michigan, Michigan State. You can look at University of Colorado. Akshay, any other schools comes to your mind for civil engineering?
UIUC is good. I'm working with a student who's applying for Colorado School of Mines. Their civil engineering program is good. People might not have heard of it, but they offer, like that's really good. Other than that, civil, I'm missing a lot of, like Texas A&M, UT Austin is good. A lot of public universities like really good in civil.
I think you can use the Mindler platform to search for new courses. You get a lot of information. Otherwise, I would say look at university websites primarily, so you get to understand in particular. So that AI is a domain that every country is going to invest in now. But of course, Switzerland, Germany, US, UK, Canada, top schools in computer science at in these countries allow you to pursue this. So we can mention the countries. We can share a few universities with you.
I actually worked with a client, student who actually got into TUM, and they have that artificial intelligence program, and they spell it. I mean, like their program, it's very fancy. It's called Applied Intelligence System or something. He was a gold medalist, and he actually got into the program. So they really look at your academics and what you have done. So your scores matter. So those kind of profile is like really important when you're looking at some of the best colleges.
For analytics, Rakesh, Imperial and Columbia have two of the best programs available, so you can consider these two.
Abhishek, okay. What's the scope of postdoctoral studies in computer science? So see, I do not have a PhD, but postdoctoral studies, obviously, like if you're doing a research path, you would be having, like tremendous opportunities. But you also have to look at the living, like the salaries and like the stipends that are given for postdoctoral. This year, if you're looking at, see, I'm specifically looking at US, okay, because that's what I have observed in postdoctoral studies. There's a lot of opportunities, and these opportunities only would be available if you go to the university website. You can look at university website. Sometimes it would be actually registered in the employment, the jobs portal of the university website. They would say they need a postdoctoral assistant, like they are inviting for postdoctoral studies. But the salaries or like the stipends of postdoctoral studies are not that great. That's causing a lot of like unrest in the US. Princeton recently increased it to I think 60 or 67,000 per year. So scope is like absolutely the best, but it depends on your profile and everything. And the best way that I would recommend is to connect with a faculty though. So yeah. Where we can search for new courses. Abhishek, I think you answered it right.
Yeah. Sunita, for product and digital design again, which country? Europe will be the storehouse of this. Works very well for this domain. PG in physical scholarship, US can be a great option. Physics is a great, I think, of course, great. I think Akshay and I share our email IDs. We're more than happy to address any particular questions. If you have, do feel free to reach out to us over email and we'll be happy to address. Thank you so much for joining us. We wanted to address a few questions and we were able to do. So thank you so much for joining and have a great day. Good luck, everyone. Thank you so much, Akshay. Thank you, everyone. Take care.